It all started with a phone call on a Thursday afternoon, one of those midweek moments when you're halfway through a coffee and barely paying attention until the voice on the other end makes your stomach clench. I was sitting at my desk, half distracted by a spreadsheet I didn't want to deal with and half daydreaming about the weekend. That's when my brother, Kyle, called. His tone was way too casual, almost like he was trying to sound rushed on purpose. "Hey, Dean, you home? Mind if I borrow your car for the evening? Just need to meet someone across town. Won't be long." I hesitated. It wasn't the first time he'd asked, but something about the way he said it, the way he threw just the evening, in like it was supposed to seal the deal, made my jaw tighten. "I'm Dean, 28 years old, and if there's one thing you should know about me, it's that I don't like being taken for a fool. I'm not some overly cautious, paranoid guy, but I've spent most of my adult life cleaning up after other people's messes, especially Kyle's." He's 31, but you wouldn't know it by the way he floats through life like it owes him a favor. Our parents still act like he's just figuring things out, which is code for he can't hold down a job, spends money like he's allergic to saving, and has an excuse for everything. Meanwhile, I've been working a steady job since I was 19, saved up to buy my used Honda Civic in cash, and never once asked anyone in my family for a dime. We grew up in the same house, with the same parents, under the same roof, but you'd think we were raised on different planets. Anyway, I said yes, against my better judgment, mostly because it wasn't worth the argument, and also because when Kyle wants something, he'll keep asking until you either give in or block his number. I told myself it would just be for a few hours. He said he'd have it back by midnight. "Promise," he added, like that was supposed to mean anything. I watched him pull out of my driveway with the windows down and music blasting like it was his car, not mine. He didn't even say thank you, just nodded once and said, "You're the best, bro," and peeled off before I could respond. I stood there for a second, keys to my backup bike in my hand, and something in my gut whispered, "Mistake." But it was too late. At first, I didn't worry. I've learned to manage my expectations with Kyle. Midnight came and went, and the car didn't return. I sent him a text. No reply. Around 1:30 a.m., I called. Straight to voicemail. The next morning, still nothing. No car in the driveway. No message. Just a sinking feeling in my stomach that got worse with every hour. I went to work that Friday on my bicycle, sweating through my shirt in the morning chill and trying not to let my imagination spiral. Maybe he stayed the night at someone's place. Maybe he forgot to charge his phone. I tried to keep myself calm, but I was already picturing worst-case scenarios. My car wrapped around a pole, towed from a street corner, or sitting abandoned with a broken window. Every time I checked my phone and saw no new messages, my patience chipped away a little more. By Friday evening, I called him 5 times. Texted even more. Still nothing. At that point, I started to feel more than annoyed. I felt disrespected. Angry. Not because of the car, but because I knew this wasn't some emergency or accident. This was Kyle being Kyle. This was Kyle deciding his life was more important than anyone else's. This was a man who'd shown up drunk to my graduation dinner and hit on my girlfriend at Thanksgiving pretending he didn't remember later. This was the guy who borrowed my headphones last year and sold them for cash, then denied it until I found the listing myself. Saturday passed in a fog of silence. I tried not to let it show, but my jaw was sore from clenching and my mood was wrecked. I couldn't focus. I barely slept. By then I was less worried about the car and more furious about what it represented, that I could never trust him, that he could just vanish with my property, ignore my calls, and come back whenever he felt like it, if he came back at all. The part that burned the most was knowing he'd laugh it off. Kyle always laughed things off. He made you feel like you were uptight for caring. That somehow, being mad made you the bad guy. Sunday morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing. Not from Kyle, of course. Just a friend asking if we were still on for coffee. I had to cancel. I wasn't about to leave the house without knowing when or if my car would magically return. I stared out the window like some sitcom dad waiting for curfew to be broken, except the stakes were higher than that. This wasn't a missed deadline. This was theft with a smile. I thought about calling the police, reporting it stolen, but I knew how that would play out. He'd claim I gave him permission, which I did, and my parents would lose their minds. "Dean, how could you? He's your brother. You don't call the police on family." They'd forget all the ways he'd burned me, all the times I'd bailed him out. They always did. By Sunday night, I was pacing, running through conversations in my head, imagining how I'd confront him, how I'd make him feel the weight of what he did. I wasn't going to yell. No, yelling never worked on Kyle. Yelling made him smug. It made him think he'd won. And then, just after 9 p.m., I heard it. The unmistakable sound of my Civic pulling into the driveway like nothing had happened. Doors slammed. Laughter. I moved to the window, and there he was, Kyle, stepping out of my car like he was getting home from a party. Hair disheveled, wearing sunglasses even though it was dark out. He wasn't alone. A girl I didn't recognize stepped out on the passenger side, giggling as she adjusted her skirt. They looked like they'd had the time of their lives. I didn't go outside right away. I stood behind the curtain, heart pounding, watching him, watching her, watching my car, my seats, my gas tank, probably empty. The car door slammed behind him, and I heard him laugh again. Loud, carefree, not a trace of guilt in his voice. And that was the moment something inside me shifted. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt cold, focused. I realized I'd been playing the wrong game this entire time, trying to win with reason, trying to earn respect from someone who didn't value it. I didn't need to yell, or cry, or even explain myself. I just needed to make a decision. I didn't go outside. Not right away. I stood there, hidden behind the edge of the curtain, letting the scene outside simmer in my brain. Kyle laughing, his arm draped casually around the girl he'd brought home like he was some kind of movie star returning from a weekend getaway. My car looked dusty. The front bumper had a fresh scuff on the corner that hadn't been there before. The tires looked low. I watched as he fumbled with something in the back seat, pulling out a pair of sneakers, a jacket that wasn't his, and a crumpled fast food bag he dropped right onto my driveway without a second thought. The girl leaned against the car like she owned it. They were still giggling. I stepped back from the window and stared at the floor. My fists were clenched, but I wasn't going to blow up, not yet. I wasn't going to give him the performance he wanted, the big dramatic scene he could twist into wow. Dean's freaking out again. No, not this time. This time, I was going to play it differently. 5 minutes later, the door opened like nothing had happened. Kyle waltzed in with the same swagger he always had, like our house was just another stop on his endless party tour. He didn't even knock, just turned the handle and let himself in, calling out like I was supposed to be excited. Yo, Dean, you home? Got your baby back safe and sound? I didn't answer right away. I let him hang in that silence for a few seconds. Then I walked into the hallway, keeping my voice low. 3 days, Kyle. He blinked like he was confused, like I was the one being weird. Huh. I gestured toward the door. You said you'd be back that night. You vanished for 3 days. You didn't answer my texts. My calls. Nothing. He gave me this lazy grin and waved his hand like it was nothing. Dude, relax. It's just a car. I told you I'd bring it back. I brought it back, didn't I? That word, just, made something burn behind my eyes. It wasn't just a car. It was my only car. My way to work. My property. My responsibility. And I had trusted him with it. I trusted Kyle, the one person I should have known better than to hand keys to. And what if you didn't? I asked, voice tightening. What if something happened? What if you got pulled over? What if someone hit you and I didn't have a clue because you couldn't bother to answer your damn phone? He laughed. Laughed. You're being dramatic. Nothing happened, man. Chill out. Behind him, the girl from the car had wandered into the living room, looking around with disinterest. She picked up a framed photo of our family, me, Kyle, and our parents, and wrinkled her nose. Cute, she said, sounding bored. Kyle looked back at her and grinned. My little brother's place. Super chill. He's just having a moment. Don't mind him. I stared at him. He didn't even flinch. He didn't look sorry. He didn't look like he realized how much he'd crossed a line, again. That was the moment I realized. Kyle never thought there was a line. Not for him. He thought the rules didn't apply because they never had. And the worst part? Our parents had let it happen. Over and over. They had trained him to believe he was untouchable. I didn't say anything more. I turned around and walked back into my room, closed the door behind me, and sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall. I heard them in the kitchen. He opened my fridge, laughed again, asked if I had anything to drink. She said she was hungry. He told her to grab whatever. I waited, not because I was unsure of what to do, but because I wanted to feel this. I wanted to sit in this moment and let it sear into my memory. This was the moment I stopped pretending. The moment I stopped giving second chances. The moment I stopped being the responsible brother and started being done. But of course, the drama didn't end there. Later that night, he left. Not before raiding my fridge, borrowing one of my hoodies without asking, again, and giving me a half-hearted slap on the shoulder like we were best buds. "You're too uptight, man," he said on his way out. "Gotta learn to roll with it." He didn't say thanks. Didn't offer to clean the car. Didn't apologize for the scuff on the bumper or the empty gas tank or the 500 kilometers he'd racked up. Just vanished again into the night like nothing mattered. The next morning, I went out to the driveway and looked inside the car. It reeked of smoke. Not cigarettes, weed. There were ashes in the cup holder, greasy wrappers stuffed into the door, and, I'm not even kidding, a bra stuffed under the passenger seat. My car had been turned into some kind of party van, and he'd laughed in my face about it. I spent hours cleaning it, scrubbing out the seats, spraying every surface with disinfectant, running it through the car wash twice just to get rid of the smell. And the whole time, all I could think about was how easy it had been for him. How he just did what he wanted and left the mess for someone else to clean up. Me. Always me. By the time I was finished, I had blisters on my hands from scrubbing. My neck was sunburned. And I was boiling with something deeper than anger, resentment. Not just for Kyle, but for the way everyone in our family seemed to orbit around him like he was the sun. I tried talking to my parents that afternoon. I called Mom first. "Hey," I said. "Just wanted to let you know that Kyle took my car for 3 days without asking, didn't answer my calls, and trashed it." She sighed, not out of shock, but like she was already tired of the topic. "Oh, Dean, I'm sure it wasn't that bad. I spent the whole morning cleaning smoke and food out of it. It smelled like a nightclub. He didn't even apologize." "Well," she said, in that voice parents use when they're gently blaming you, "you did lend it to him, didn't you? Maybe next time you should set clearer boundaries." Clearer boundaries. Like saying, "have it back by midnight," wasn't clear enough. Like texting and calling repeatedly didn't count as trying to hold him accountable. "I did," I said. He ignored them. "Well, you know how your brother is," she replied softly. "He's always been a free spirit. He just needs time to grow up. He's 31. She went quiet for a moment. "Just try not to make it a thing, Dean. Families argue. It's normal. But don't hold a grudge. You'll regret it later." Hold a grudge. That phrase made my blood boil. Because for some reason, Kyle's behavior was never the problem. It was always how I reacted to it that got criticized. That had been the pattern my whole life. He stole from me. Don't hold a grudge. He ruined my birthday party in high school by getting drunk and throwing up in the living room. Let it go. He didn't mean to. He bailed on helping me move apartments last year after promising twice. He's going through a lot right now. There was always an excuse. And I was expected to be the mature one, the understanding one, the calm one. Like being the responsible brother meant I had to absorb every disappointment and still smile at Thanksgiving. But I was done. I didn't answer any more of my mom's texts that day. I didn't answer when Kyle called me 2 days later to see what the big deal was. I just let it ring out. And I started thinking, really thinking, not about getting even, not yet, but about drawing a line, and what that would actually look like. That weekend, I got invited to dinner at our parents' place. My first instinct was to say no, but part of me wanted to see what would happen. I wanted to walk into that house and observe, like I was studying them all under a microscope. And what I saw was exactly what I expected. Kyle was already there, sitting at the table, laughing with Dad like he was the golden child. He'd shaved, styled his hair, even wore a button-up shirt like he was trying to look put together. When I walked in, he flashed that same smirk. "There he is," he said. "Mr. Serious." I didn't reply, just sat down. Dinner was some kind of roast, with potatoes and that weird green bean thing Mom always makes. Conversation floated around the table like it always did. Work talk, gossip about cousins I barely knew, Dad complaining about gas prices. And then, somewhere between salad and dessert, Kyle dropped the line that broke me. "You know," he said casually, sipping his wine, "I've been thinking about trading up for a new car. That Civic handle's nice, but I need something flashier. I mean, if Dean can afford it, why not me?" My fork clinked against the plate. I froze. Dad laughed. "Maybe you should have kept it a few more days. Sounded like you were enjoying the test drive." Kyle winked. I was. Real smooth ride. Mom chuckled too, like it was all some inside joke. And that was it. The moment I knew, truly knew, that they weren't just enabling him. They were entertained by it. They thought I was overreacting, that I was uptight, that he was the fun one, the charming one, the free spirit. And I was the guy who couldn't take a joke. I excused myself from the table, walked into the guest bathroom, locked the door, and stared at myself in the mirror. I didn't go back to our parents' place after that dinner. Not for a while. I let texts pile up, let calls go to voicemail, and ignored every soft invitation from Mom asking if I wanted to swing by for leftovers or help Dad clean out the garage. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the loud, fist-clenching way I had been before. This was quieter, heavier. I felt like something had been permanently dislodged inside me, like I'd finally accepted that no one was coming to make things fair, and that waiting for them to see my side was a waste of breath. The week after that dinner, I didn't sleep much. Not from stress. At least, not the kind that makes you panic, but from a buzzing energy in my chest. I'd reached my breaking point, and now there was only one way to go: up. But not on their terms. Not by yelling or arguing or playing the good son who keeps the peace. That guy was gone. I started small. On the surface, nothing about my life looked different. Same job, same apartment, same bike rides to work while I quietly saved every dollar I could. But behind the scenes, I was setting things in motion. I took stock of everything I'd let slide, not just with Kyle, but with everyone. The favors I gave freely. The time I let people steal. The way I kept explaining myself like being responsible was a crime I needed to apologize for. I stopped doing that. I unsubscribed from the family group chat. No announcement. Just left. I figured if they noticed, they'd either ignore it or try to guilt-trip me back in. Either way, I didn't care. I blocked Kyle's number. That part felt good. Like cutting a cord I didn't realize was still wrapped around my ankle. No more. Yo bro, can I crash at yours? Or can you spot me for gas? Or, God forbid. Just for a few hours, I swear. Then I went a step further. I checked my insurance. Removed Kyle as an authorized driver. Changed my locks. I started treating my own life like a territory I had to defend. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't need to. I was done playing defense. The loneliness hit me about 2 weeks in. It always does, when you start pulling away from a system you've been tangled in for years. Not having Kyle around, not hearing from my parents, left this weird empty space where noise used to be. But it wasn't a bad silence. It was clean, like walking through a freshly snowed street. For once, I didn't have to look over my shoulder, waiting for someone to come crashing and asking for something. At work, I threw myself into projects I'd been avoiding. I took extra shifts, volunteered to lead a product presentation I normally would have shied away from. I stopped brushing off compliments. When my manager told me I had leadership potential, I didn't laugh it off or change the subject. I said, "Thanks. I've been thinking about stepping up." I could feel the change, like I was shedding a second skin I didn't realize I'd been wearing. Around that same time, I found this old sketchbook under my bed, something from college, when I used to draw all the time. I flipped through it, half expecting to cringe, but instead I felt this weird ache. I remembered staying up late, covered in charcoal dust, dreaming of being an illustrator or working in design. Somewhere along the way, life got practical. Drawing didn't pay the bills. I shoved it aside and forgot it was ever part of me. But now that I had the quiet, the distance, I picked up a pencil again. Started sketching at night. Nothing serious at first. Just lines. Faces. The shape of my car, funny enough, the one Kyle had trashed. But instead of drawing it broken, I drew it clean. Shiny. Like new. Then I started sketching scenes, little comics. A brother who keeps stealing things, and another who keeps letting him, until he doesn't. I didn't realize I was making something until I was halfway through the 3rd page. By the end of that month, I had the bones of a full graphic short story. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And it felt real. Like I was building something out of the mess. Around that time, I finally heard from Mom again, a voice message this time. Her tone was soft, trying to be neutral. "Hey, sweetheart. Just checking in. Haven't heard from you in a bit. Hope everything's okay. Kyle said he hasn't been able to reach you. Anyway, Dad and I are a little worried. Let us know you're all right." I played the message twice. Not because I was tempted to reply. I wasn't. But because I wanted to study the words. Not once did she say sorry about the dinner. Not once did she ask what happened from my side. Just the usual. Concern, but only if I was quiet and didn't rock the boat. I didn't respond. Instead, I booked a weekend trip. First time in years I did something just for me. Just 2 days away, out of the city, no itinerary. I brought my sketchbook. Sat by the lake. Thought about who I wanted to be, now that I wasn't dragging Kyle's dead weight behind me like an anchor. That's when it hit me. I didn't want to go back to who I used to be. I wanted to become someone new, someone sharper, someone who didn't apologize for taking up space. When I got back, I started selling some old things online. Stuff I didn't use anymore. Tech, clothes, even a couple of guitars I hadn't touched in years. With the cash, I bought myself a new drawing tablet. Not the top-tier model, but good enough to start freelancing. I watched videos, took a few online courses, and slowly, I started getting the hang of digital design. I didn't quit my job or make some big announcement, but I started putting feelers out, built a small online portfolio, got a couple of logo commissions, a t-shirt design gig. One of my coworkers hired me to do a pet portrait for their girlfriend's birthday. It wasn't much, but it reminded me that I could create, that I had something Kyle couldn't take, borrow, or break. And with every tiny win, my spine straightened a little more. A few months passed. My parents stopped calling as often. The guilt messages got more spaced out. I could see the pattern. They thought if they gave me time, I'd eventually get over it and come back. That was their rhythm. Pretend nothing happened, wait it out, move on without ever addressing the real issue. But I wasn't on their timeline anymore. Then came the unexpected twist. I was at work one afternoon when I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I'd ignore it, but something told me to pick up. "Hi, is this Dean?" a woman asked. "Yeah, who's this?" "This is Lily. I don't know if you remember me. I was with Kyle. That weekend. With your car." I froze. My fingers went still on the keyboard. I just wanted to say, "I'm really sorry about that. I didn't know the car wasn't his. He told me it was his. And I saw some of the stuff he said about you. I don't know. I thought you should know." There was silence on the line, like she was waiting for me to say something. But I was too stunned. "I broke up with him," she said quickly. "Not just because of the car. He's not who he pretends to be. But I guess you already knew that." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. "Thanks for telling me. He's been talking a lot about needing money lately," she added. "Said something about trying to sell some stuff of yours. I didn't really get the details, but just be careful, okay?" I thanked her again and hung up. Sell something of mine. I checked my apartment that night. Everything looked normal. My sketchbook was safe, my tablet untouched. But the seed had been planted. Kyle wasn't done. He never was. And if he couldn't charm me anymore, he'd try something else. I didn't panic. I planned. I didn't sleep the night after Lily called. Not because I was afraid, not exactly, but because my mind wouldn't stop turning. The idea that Kyle might be planning to sell something of mine wasn't just a red flag. It was a flare shot into the sky. He'd already crossed so many lines that I'd stopped counting, but this felt different. This wasn't just disrespect. This was calculated, desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. He didn't know I'd changed the locks. He didn't know I'd taken him off the car insurance. He didn't know I had started documenting everything, quietly, methodically, like a detective building a case. For the first time in my life, I had an advantage over him. I had distance. I had proof. And I had clarity. That night, I pulled out an old notebook and started writing. Not drawing, writing. Every incident I could remember. Every time he borrowed something and lost it. Every favor that ended in a mess I had to clean up. Every time he threw me under the bus to our parents. Every lie. Every guilt trip. Every manipulation. I wrote dates, details, names. I even pulled up old texts, emails, call logs. I wasn't being paranoid. I was building a timeline. A record. Because if Kyle wanted to escalate things, I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to make him wish he hadn't. But I couldn't just strike back blindly. I needed to wait. Watch. Let him reveal himself. And while I waited, I got to work. First, I changed my passwords, all of them. Email, bank accounts, cloud storage, even my social media. I added two-factor authentication to everything. Not that I ever gave Kyle my passwords, but I wouldn't put it past him to snoop if he got the chance. I deleted old backup files from shared family computers, scrubbed any documents or tax files that might have had my personal info. Next, I took inventory. Literally. I made a spreadsheet of all the valuables in my apartment, electronics, art supplies, gadgets, furniture. I even took pictures, uploaded them to the cloud, filed a digital copy and a printed one in a lockbox. Because if anything did go missing, I wasn't going to argue about it. I was going to show proof. And then, I made a quiet visit to a lawyer. It wasn't anything dramatic. I didn't storm into a firm demanding justice. I just found a local attorney who specialized in small claims and property disputes. sat down in a small office that smelled like coffee and old wood, and told them my story. Not all of it, just the relevant parts. He's never violent, I said, but he's manipulative, entitled, uses people. I just want to be prepared in case he does something that crosses a legal line. The lawyer nodded, taking notes. She didn't look surprised. Said she'd heard similar things before. Family members who took advantage of the quiet one. The responsible one. By the time I left, I had information. Options. A few documents I could sign and file, if I ever needed to send a cease and desist or file a theft report that actually stuck. I left that office feeling lighter. Not because I had struck back, but because I was ready. And then, Kyle gave me exactly what I needed. It started with a mutual friend, Jordan. He and I weren't super close, but we'd hung out in the same circles back in high school, and we'd occasionally bumped into each other since. He DM'd me out of the blue one Thursday. Yo man, random Q. Did you sell your old PS5? Just saw a listing from Kyle. Said it was yours, but that you didn't want it anymore. My chest went cold. I still had that PS5. It wasn't even old. I barely had time to use it between work and freelancing. It was sitting on my entertainment stand, hooked up, functional. Wait, I messaged back. He listed it online? Where? Jordan sent me the screenshot. Facebook Marketplace. Blurry photos, clearly taken in my apartment, on my rug, with a caption that read, selling my brother's PS5, barely used. He said I could keep the cash if I sold it. My name wasn't listed, but anyone who knew both of us could piece it together. I didn't message Kyle. I didn't rant in the group chat. I didn't even call my parents. Instead, I opened Facebook, made a burner account, and messaged him as a potential buyer. Hey, is this still available? Kyle responded within 10 minutes. Yep, brand new basically. $350 if you pick up. Sweet. Can I see more photos? He sent 2 more. One was a close-up. In the background, I spotted a sketchbook, my sketchbook, on the coffee table. My jaw clenched. But I wasn't surprised. This was Kyle's way. Act like everything belonged to him. Sell it when no one's looking. Tell a story that makes him sound generous or misunderstood. What he didn't know was that I had already laid the trap. I contacted the lawyer again. Showed her the screenshots, the photos, the messages. She helped me draft a formal notice. Not a lawsuit. Not yet. But a legally worded document informing him that any attempt to sell or claim ownership of my property would be met with immediate legal action. And then, I waited again. Because I needed more. Kyle wasn't just going to walk away with a slap on the wrist. I needed him to expose himself in a way no one could ignore. And so, I made a plan. I called Jordan and asked him for a favor. Would you be willing, I said slowly, to pretend to buy the PS5? He hesitated. You want me to actually go through with it? No, I said. I just want to meet him in person. I want him to say out loud that it's his to sell. If he does that, and I have someone else there to confirm it, someone neutral, it's all I need. Jordan agreed. He wasn't a fan of Kyle either. Said he always thought the guy was shady. We set up a meeting for Saturday afternoon. A park near my apartment. Public. Open. Jordan would buy the PS5, Kyle would hand it over, and I'd be watching from a distance. Recording. But just in case Kyle backed out, I had a backup plan too. I made a second burner account. Messaged him from that one too. Hey, I'll give you $400 for the PS5 if you can meet today. Kyle bid immediately. Greed always was his weak spot. He set the second meeting for an hour before Jordan's. And I was ready. On the day of the meetup, I waited in my car across the street, camera already rolling. Kyle showed up 5 minutes early. Of course he did. I watched him pace the sidewalk, holding a duffel bag, probably with my console inside. I stayed hidden. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. The burner account didn't show up, because it was me. After 15 minutes, Kyle started texting angrily. You serious? Bro, I came all this way. Answer me, or I'm leaving. Then, right on cue, Jordan arrived. He walked up casually, shook Kyle's hand, and asked, This the one from the photos? Kyle unzipped the bag, pulled out the console, and said the words I needed to hear. Yeah, my brother barely used it. Told me I could get rid of it. He's chill about that stuff. I had it on video. Clear audio. Everything. Jordan nodded, made some polite excuses about needing to check the cash, and walked away with a thumbs up behind his back. I waited 5 minutes, then drove off before Kyle could notice me. That night, I sent the footage to my lawyer. She called the next day. This is more than enough, she said. You've got him. Want to press charges? Not yet. Not until I made one more move. I hadn't stepped into my parents' house in nearly 4 months. Not since that roast dinner. Not since Kyle smirked across the table and joked about trading up, while they all laughed like I was the uptight killjoy in some family sitcom. But this time, I didn't feel nervous, or bitter, or even sad. I felt calm. I parked my car 2 blocks away. Not because I had to, but because I didn't want Kyle seeing me arrive. I knew he'd be there. It was Sunday. Our parents always had him over for lunch, like clockwork. No matter what drama he stirred up, they never failed to feed him, to baby him, to reward the chaos with casseroles and sympathy. I knocked on the front door, and Mom answered, startled. Dean, she blinked like I was a ghost. You didn't say you were coming. I didn't think I had to, I said simply. Family's always welcome, right? She stepped aside, flustered. Of course, of course. Come in. I could smell pot roast. I could hear the murmur of the TV in the living room. And then his voice. Kyle. Yo, Ma. Who was at the door? And there he was, sprawled across the couch like he owned the place, soda in one hand, wearing my old hoodie, the one he borrowed months ago and never gave back. His face shifted when he saw me. Surprise, then wariness, then arrogance. Well, he said, grinning. Look who crawled out of his cave. I didn't answer him. I just looked at Dad, sitting in his usual recliner. I need 10 minutes, I said. Then I'll leave. What's this about? Dad asked, frowning. You'll see. I pulled out the manila envelope from my coat pocket and set it on the coffee table. I want to show you something. Kyle scoffed. Is this a presentation now? I opened the envelope and pulled out the printed photos. High-resolution stills from the video I'd recorded at the park. Kyle, handing over my PS5 to Jordan. His face. His hands. My console. I laid them out like cards. What's this? Dad asked again, sitting forward. Mom was already shaking her head. Dean, what are you doing? I'm showing you proof, I said, of what he's been doing behind your backs. I placed the next sheet down, a printout of the Facebook Marketplace listing. The caption, the blurred rug in the background. And beside that, the transcript of the messages Kyle had sent to both of my burner accounts. I set him up, I said calmly. He thought he was selling my PS5 to a stranger. That stranger was Jordan. And this, I tapped the photo, is him lying. On camera, telling someone I said he could sell my stuff. The silence was sharp. Mom opened her mouth, then closed it. Kyle laughed, too loudly, too quickly. You seriously went full detective on me, he scoffed. You're insane. I didn't flinch. No, I'm done. I pulled out the last piece, the cease and desist notice drafted by my lawyer. I placed it gently on the table, right in front of him. This is official, I said. If you so much as try to access my apartment, touch my car, use my name, or claim anything of mine as yours again, I will file criminal charges. I have everything documented. Every time you stole. Every time you lied. Every time you scammed someone using my stuff. He sat back, blinking. The color drained from his face. Dad stared at the papers like they were written in another language. Dean, this is your brother. I turned to him. And for years, you've treated me like the problem. Like being angry made me the bad guy. Like setting boundaries was ungrateful. You've covered for him so many times you don't even see it anymore. But I do. Mom tried to interrupt. Honey, please. This isn't necessary. No, I said louder now. It is. Because you never believed me. You brushed it off. Every time. You made excuses for him and told me to let it go. You watched him take and take and take. From me, from other people, and you enabled it. You didn't protect your sons. You protected your peace. And that's not love. That's neglect. Mom's face fell. Dad looked stunned. Kyle stood up, red creeping into his neck. You think you're better than me? No, I said, stepping closer. I know I am. Because I built my life from the ground up while you burned bridges and borrowed time. I worked for everything. You schemed. You stole. And when you finally got caught, all you could do was insult me. His jaw clenched. You can't prove I sold anything. I don't have to, I said coolly. I just have to prove intent. Which I've done. Twice. And the moment you deny it, I'll press charges. You'll have a record. You'll lose your leverage with everyone who still pities you. You'll be exposed. The room was silent again. No one moved. Then Dad spoke, his voice low. Is this true? He asked Kyle. Did you really try to sell his stuff? Kyle didn't answer. That was all Dad needed. Mom stood up, shaky. Maybe we should all take a breath. Talk this out. No, I said. I'm not here to talk. I'm here to set the terms. I'm done being part of a system that rewards whoever shouts the loudest or lies the smoothest. I'm not coming to holidays. I'm not joining family calls. I'm not playing the role of the good son who just deals with it. Mom reached for me, but I stepped back. I'm not cutting you out, I said softly. I'm just walking away from this until you see it for what it is. I turned to Kyle one last time. You had your chances. You turned them into jokes. This is your last one. He didn't speak, didn't move, didn't even blink as I picked up the envelope and walked out the door. I expected to feel heavy, angry, sad, but I didn't. I walked to my car, my clean, fixed-up, mine car, and sat behind the wheel, heart steady. And then, a week later, the final blow came. Not from me, but from life. Jordan called me again. Dude, he said, you're not going to believe this. Kyle had tried to sell someone else's iPhone. Claimed it was his. Turned out, it wasn't. The buyer was undercover. An actual sting. He was arrested, charged with attempted fraud and possession of stolen property. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I didn't even tell my parents. They already knew. I could tell by the silence. The kind of silence that comes when your worldview shatters and you have no choice but to sit in the ruins. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. From Kyle. 1 page. Handwritten. No apology. No ownership. Just a rambling, self-pitying explanation about how he didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't respond. Instead, I went back to my drawing tablet, opened a blank canvas, and started the final panel of my comic. A man standing on the edge of a cliff, letting go of a rope tied to his sinking ship. No shouting, no explosion, just peace. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud. It's living a life no one can steal, and never looking back.